Hello and welcome to another session of Talking Faith, the weekly devotional where Cal and I spend a little bit of time just relaxing with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and discuss through important matters of faith, things that have been on our mind over the last week or maybe several weeks. So we urge you today again, make yourself a cup of tea or a coffee, sit down and relax with us as we discuss through elements of our faith as we continue talking faith. Cal, what has been on your mind recently?
What's been kind of standing out to me is something that we're going to be unpacking a little bit more over the coming weeks. And that's, we're going to kind of change stuff up a little bit and look through a particular part of Scripture, that being the Beatitudes, which we find at the very beginning of Matthew chapter 5, and there's also references later on in Mark as well. But there's this kind of list of, kind of statements that Jesus makes about different people and kind of, it's airing towards his kingdom. It's part of the Sermon on the Mount narrative. It's this whole section where Jesus unpacks what he is about, what God is about, what his people are to be about, what the kingdom is like. It's this whole kind of wonderful, powerful bit of Scripture, which gives us so much rich things to think about as Christians. The Beatitudes is a key part of the whole Sermon on the Mount. So it got me thinking, particularly, I guess, before we unpack the individual kind of statements that are made within it, there's a thread, a theme, which is blessing. Yeah. Like each kind of verse starts with, "Blessed are these people, they will this." Yeah. There's this kind of refrain that keeps on going. And it got me thinking, well, what is blessing? What is blessed? And I guess I'll throw that back to you, Johnny. What comes to your mind when you think of blessed or blessing or blessed?
Well, the first thing that sort of comes into my mind potentially is the notion of gifts maybe comes to mind. So God giving us stuff that is a blessing to us, maybe helping us physically, maybe helping us spiritually, many different ways, essentially him having a hand in our lives. That's what comes to my mind when I think of blessing, him being part of our lives.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that's a kind of key part of our understanding of blessing. One of the things that struck me, particularly as I was looking over these passages, and it's something I hadn't really thought about before, but was the fact that each one starts with blessed, like two syllables. Yeah. It started with a slight panic in my head, if I'm honest, because I was a bit like, wait, have I been saying this wrong the whole time? Is it just blessed? Like, blessed are the so-and-so? Yeah. And I've just been saying it wrong, but no, it's not, as I'm sure most of you already realise back there. There is a distinction in some ways between the word blessed and the word blessed. Although they're spelled the same, there's the single syllable, there's the double syllable. And the way that language works, there's a kind of blurred line between the two of them, but there is a kind of rough generalization of a rule of when you use blessed and when you use blessed, kind of distinguishing between both of them. And I think actually both are clearly present through a lot of Scripture. Generally speaking, blessed is more to do with the action. It's a verb, it's a doing word, to bless someone. Yeah. It's something you do to someone else or something else. You bless them. It's this kind of verb action sort of initiative, generally speaking. Although, again, I emphasize not exclusively. But then blessed, which is probably a bit more, maybe not used as commonly nowadays, but blessed is at least more to do with the kind of descriptive term. It's more an adjective or an adverb, is generally speaking when it's used. It's more of someone is or something is blessed. Yeah. You can be blessed, but you are blessed is not exclusively, but generally speaking, kind of the contrast between the two. And it got me thinking about that notion of being blessed and being blessed, like in Scripture. And I think there's great examples of both. One, I guess, the blessings of God are plentiful throughout Scripture. Many people encounter God in powerful ways where he blesses them, where he miraculously shows up, he gives something to them, or he kind of empowers them or grants them something along the way. It's a wonderful thing many times when God shows up and blesses someone throughout Scripture. But then by contrast, there is also a number of occasions of someone or something or a group of people being made blessed. Yeah. And in that sense, it's more to do with a kind of idea of holiness, of a set apartness, A prime example of that would be the people of Israel. They are made holy, they are blessed, they're a blessed nation because God has chosen them and has set them apart and has made them holy. So they become and they are blessed. And the same truth is true of us as Christians. We are God's people, we are blessed people. We know Jesus. It's a quality, it's a description of who we are rather than just something that has happened to us. There is a kind of, it overlaps and it interlinks, but there is a subtle distinction between those two elements that we find at play.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really truly appreciated the two elements kind of playing off each other. Maybe just assume them all to be one sometimes, and I think it's easy to make a mistake. English is not my strong suit for one. So when you look at this scripture, is there any one of these two things that stand out more, blessing or blessed?
I mean, obviously we use the term blessed, like blessed are so-and-so and so forth is the classic way that we describe it. I think the interesting thing though is that I can't help but see both as I look through the Beatitudes, that both are at play. Now, in one sense, there is an action. God is blessing people. He is saying that if you are this way, if there's this kind of focus or perspective for you, then you will receive this blessing. Like this is kind of, if you're like this will happen to you. There's a blessing that's to come if you're like that. And then in a different sense, I think also they are descriptions of what it is to be followers of Jesus, that these things will work out in our lives if we follow, if we look to him, if we come to him, then these are his perspectives, and in time they should become more and more our perspectives. A little bit like how it plays out with the fruit of the Spirit, that the Spirit is at work in us, and through that characteristics kind of flourish in our life of love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, gentleness, kindness, self-control, and I've probably missed one in there too. But yeah, these characteristics will flourish in us, the Spirit at work in us. Well, I would make the case to suggest that the same is true of the Beatitudes, that as we come to know God, as we accept our identity as blessed children of God, these perspectives on life will start to flourish in us. And as a result, we will then be blessed by the consequence of those perspectives flourishing in us. It's both at play at the same time. But crucially, it's all done, all initiated by God. He is the one who blesses us. He is the one who makes us blessed. Its starting point is not our strength. It's not a list of things to will yourself to be more like this, but rather, as we come to God, these fruits, these blessings will become more and more true in our lives. Even if the blessings themselves or the descriptions themselves may seem counterintuitive, there's a truth to be uncovered about what God is about at the heart of it all.
It's good to sort of unpack that sort of notion where as we sort of get closer to God, we start to become more like him, and that flows through us, just as we've mentioned before with fruits of the Spirit, just as we're seeing here in the Beatitudes. This notion of God working through his nature in us is really amazing, and through that blessing will come to us. That's very, very encouraging. And I hope as you've spent some time with us today that you've maybe took something from this, and maybe it's an area where you can spend time with God and grow in your blessedness as you reflect more of him to those around you.